Hello class, this is a video tutorial on solving equations. In this video we're going to be looking at solving basic quadratic equations. I'm going to quickly go over the four operations that we're familiar with: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And the inverse of each is inverse of add is subtract, inverse of subtract is add, of multiplication is division, and for division is multiplication. I'm going to introduce to you two new operations. It is called the square and the square root, and these are the reverse of each other. And if you want to take a look at what it sees first on your calculator, it will look like the following. It looks something like that. I'm going to show you now how to apply that to equations such as these. So whenever we see an equation that has an x squared or a squared or b squared or whatever, we know that we have to do a square root in here at some stage. Now the main thing that you need to remember is that you can only perform this step that I'm about to show you. If I square root this side, I must square root the other side as well. This step can only be done if x squared is alone, meaning it's just the x squared on its own. Because of this, since it's x squared and the square root, since these two are the inverse of each other, what we are left with is x by itself. And now, essentially what it's saying is what number multiplied by itself gives me 9. In case you don't know, you can always just check on your calculator. Square root of 9 is 3. However, that's just the calculator answer. For any quadratic equation such as this, you must always take the positive and the negative of 3. Essentially what this symbol, this symbol by the way is called the plus minus symbol. That is the plus minus symbol. And what it's saying is that there's actually two solutions. It is actually both x is equal to the positive 3 and x is equal to the negative 3. It's both positive and negative. I'm going to quickly go through as to why this is the case. If we can recall, in solving equations, we are finding a number that we can substitute back into the equation. So if we substitute positive 3 into this equation, let's take a look at what happens. So I'm going to solve it here. Let x equal positive 3. So substituting this into our equation, we get 3 is substituted, squared is equal to 9. 3 squared is 3 times 3, multiplying by itself. It gives me 9 is equal to 9. And this is a true statement. So 3, this number 3, is a solution. But now if we test the same thing, let x equal negative 3. If we substitute that value, negative 3 squared is equal to 9. What is now, in your mind, what is negative 3 times itself? Or, what is negative 3 times negative 3? Well, that will also give me positive 9. So, 9 is equal to 9, which is also true. So which means that this value, x equals negative 3, is also a solution. Hence why we have both the positive and the minus of 3. And this symbol will be applied to any occasion that we use the square root for. Let's take a look now at these few examples. Here we have x squared equals 16. This is very simple. Since it's x squared by itself, we can take the square root of both sides. We get x is equal to, if you already know the solution, that's great, but I'll show you. Square root of 16 is 4. But it's not just 4, we must take the positive and the minus of 4. Once again, it is x by itself. Take this, x squared by itself. We can take the square root of both sides. This will give me x is equal to square root of 81, gives me 9. But once again, it's not just 9, it's the positive and the negative of 9. Let's take a look at now the occasions of when it's not by itself. This is 3x squared equals 12. Well, going back to what we know from solving equations, we can remove this 3. Since this is 3 times x squared, we can divide by 3 on both sides. This will remove that 3, which gives me x squared is equal to 4, because 12 divided by 3 is 4. And then taking the square root of both sides, the square root of 4 is 2. But once again, it's not just 2, it's x by itself equals plus and minus of 2. Same scenario here. We don't want 4x squared, we want x squared by itself. Dividing both sides by 4. These 4's go away, which leaves me with x squared is equal to 9. Taking the square root of both sides gives me x is equal to plus and minus of 3. Using the same principle now, we can use the principles of two-step equation solving to solve these equations here. Once again, since x squared is not by itself, we have plus 5 here. To remove that plus 5, we must subtract 5 on both sides of the equations, which will give us x squared equals 25. Taking the square root of both sides, this will give us square root of 25 is the positive, x is equal to the positive and minus of 5. Continuing on, we want to remove once again that minus 5 by adding 5 to both sides. Gives me x squared by itself. 76 plus 5 is 81. Taking the square root of both sides. You can check on your calculator. I can do it in my mind. It gives me x is equal to plus and minus of 9. Last example here. We want to remove once again that plus 8 by subtracting 8. This will leave me with x squared is equal to 57 minus 8 is 49. Taking the square root of both sides, that will give me x by itself plus and minus of 7. I hope this gave you an insight into solving equations with basic quadratic equations. Best of luck.